Okay, this is better. Okay, YouTube. Hi, strangers. Today Christmas. Merry Christmas. Um, Sorry I'm not in the Christmas mood, but I'm working 7 days a week this week, and I just don't feel like being in the Christmas spirit. Kind of wore off around the 19th. Um, I was really into it, like right after Thanksgiving. My brother was here, and I haven't seen my brother in a while. And he was here for Thanksgiving. He stayed out for the weekend with me, and so I was really in a good mood during that time. And after that, after he left, I was working more hours and just getting into the grind of, planning on moving after the first of the year. So I'm not moving at the first of the year like I wanted to, but the 1st of February at the latest. If I can get my keys before then, you know how, like rental companies are, they want to let you move in at the first of the year, or even before then, they're going to prorate your rent for that next month. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I'll just vlog it and y'all see the empty house tour and the furnished house tour. So, well, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about, as you see in the title, like I said, not really in the mood in the holiday season. The holiday season isn't a really great time for me and my family. Like, we try to, stay in, good spirits and everything like that, but hasn't really been the same since I was 9. Whew, this is going to be a long ass story, so let's just start out, because, people have different ways of grieving, and I know for sure that my sister is still grieving. So, I was 9. Christmas had rolled around, and Christmas vacation had rolled around, and it was me, my sister. She's 9 years older than I am, so she was around 18 at this time, maybe even 19, but I'm thinking she was 18. And my dad. My dad was a hard worker, never missed a day of work, but after the Christmas holiday had started for our school district, I was already out of school. He did something that he had never done before, and that was he called my older sister. He has 3 kids from his first marriage, and then he has another daughter from outside of that marriage. So I'm not going to tell her business, but I have another sister from outside of his first marriage, and I'm the youngest of his children, and I'm the youngest of my mother's children, and my mother only has 2 girls, and that's my older sister, who's 9 years older than me. So he did something that he had never done before, and that was call my sister, my older sister, from out of town, and he told her to come and pick him up and take him to the hospital because he wasn't feeling well. And that's odd and foreign to us because he's never sick. Like I said, he never missed a day of work, and he was just one of those hard workers. He did construction for the city of Charlotte. It was like a sub company, so really he was laying the streets or the asphalt for the company that he worked for that was up under the city of Charlotte. Oop, I was just about to pick my nose. Hold on, y'all. Okay, so he called my sister, and excuse me if my eyes are closed, but I'm just envisioning this. He called my sister. He asked her to come pick him up and take him to the hospital because he wasn't feeling well. And my older sister, my mom's first daughter, she went with them, and he never came home. This was before Christmas. He was in the hospital since, let me say, a week before the 19th. Ergo, my father's birthday is on Christmas Day. My brother's birthday, his oldest son, is on Christmas Eve. My brother William, the one that was here for Thanksgiving, his birthday is on Christmas Eve. So called and told him happy birthday. And so like I said, he never made it back home. They decided to admit him into the hospital because he had pneumonia. You know, the walking cough or the walking flu. I forgot what it was called. But, you know, walking pneumonia. Because, you know, people can have that and then just drop any minute. And my dad used to work out in cold weather. Plus, he was older than anybody would expect anybody with a 9-year-old daughter to be. My dad was 47 when I was born. So, 47, 46, 45. So, he was 55 when he passed. So, and that's still relatively young, but when you work as hard as my dad did, that tends to take a toll on your body. Excuse me, I need something to drink. And I'm guessing that's what happened. So, he went in, and he ended up passing away December 19th. And I'm telling you this because, you know, the holidays are really a fucked up time, not just for my family, but for other people. That's when a lot of bullshit starts to happen. You know, it's a lot of shit going on throughout the year anyway, but Christmas is just a hard time anyway. You know, people are losing their jobs. People are, you know, just going through a whole lot of stuff. And then on the flip side, there are other people who are just enjoying their families and, you know, they have the holiday off and they're totally oblivious to what other people are going through. And I'm not to say, you know, they don't think about, you know, the less fortunate or people who are going through any type of struggles, but, you know, they're focused on them. And I'm just doing this video for people who aren't, I'm not gonna say, you know, happy to, you know, be alive during the holidays, because, you know, the holidays are just a blessed time, you know, just to be around your family, but not everybody is just into it like that. I'm not, like, I have my Christmas tree up, that makes me happy, and I'm not gonna take it down until I move. But when you lose a parent, especially on children, when you lose a parent around the holidays like that, you know, I never believed in Santa Claus. I had enough sense to know that Santa Claus didn't fucking exist. But just having something that traumatic happen at such a young age, I'm not going to say that it changed me. It just made me grow up a whole lot faster, because after that, my mother went on disability, and I was taking care of her physically. Like, after my father passed away, he passed away on the 19th. Like I said, his birthday was on Christmas, so you know, we had his funeral on the 23rd, so it was just a whole lot of family around during that time. It was so crazy because his funeral was on the 23rd. It rained that whole day. It rained that whole day, and it was just a whole bunch of people around. And you know how family rallies around you, you know, when somebody passes away, and then afterwards, you know, when they get their plates and they tell you that bullshit lie, well, if you need me, call me. If you need anything, call me, let me know. And then you just don't hear from them. It's just, that's it. So the only time my family really gets together is, you know, that fake ass family reunion and weddings and funerals, and nobody really gets married like that. But, you know, people die every day, so I'm just patiently waiting for the next person to fall off so we can all get together and fake like we actually like each other. So, like I said, it was after my father passed away. When a 9-year-old goes through a traumatic experience like that and experiences death for the first time, you know, you can never really come back from that, especially when your financial situation changes. I didn't know that it had changed, but my mother did everything she could to make it seem like it hadn't, and I didn't know that it did. So, like I said, my mother went on disability, and when you go on disability, you get a disability check every month. So instead of relying on my father for the mortgage payments, it was that. So, And on top of my mother being on disability, she didn't leave the house. I would say she was on disability because she was overweight and she couldn't physically take care of herself. So me as a 9-year-old, I had to step up and I had to become a nurse. Not to say that my sister, my older sister, who's 9 years older than I am, didn't help. But I think my sister resented my mother for being the way she was, just being overweight and not doing what a typical mom can do. And my sister probably doesn't even realize this, and I would never talk to her about this until she was ready, but ironically, I'm talking to the whole fucking world about it. But I just noticed certain things, like my mother would ask me to do things that she wouldn't ask my sister, to do. So, aside from me going to school 5 days a week, I was a nurse. I was giving baths. I don't mean to be graphic, but I was giving enemas, testing for diabetes, taking insulin, giving insulin and checking numbers, her diabetes numbers, her blood sugar numbers and her blood pressure. And, when you're on Medicaid and, when you're in that type of situation, when you're overweight like that, you get, my mother, she got, bed, what are they called? Bed pads. It got to a point where she couldn't walk to the bathroom. Sometimes she did. And the other times, I would have to clean her up. She got day nurses for when I was at school. So, and I wasn't even thinking about, I don't have a childhood because I'm doing this for a parent and I shouldn't have to. That's my fucking mother. When your parents, especially when your mom gives birth to you and they change you, they feed you, they wipe your ass, at some point in time you're going to have to do that for them because your parents are going to get old. Your parents are not going to be able to take care of themselves anymore. And then that's when you have to step in. And I don't believe in sending anybody to a nursing home or anything like that and having them treated any type of way. Now, granted, I would never do anything like that again. I did that for 10 whole years of my life. And I am done. My mother is gone. And I would never do that again. If I get married and my husband has a parent that needs around-the-clock care, I won't do it. I just won't do it. And I just won't do it. We're going to have to hire somebody, pay somebody. It's really up to, that person's children or my husband or his siblings if they want to put them in a facility somewhere. But other than that, I'm not doing a goddamn thing that has to do with wiping somebody else's ass. You're not my parent. You're not my sibling. You're not my child. So no, I would never do anything like that again. But back to the story. At 9 years old, I became a nurse. And as I mentioned, I did that for 10 whole years. I'm going to say 9 years because holiday season rolls around again. Christmas 2008. This is so weird. Christmas 2008 rolls around. My mother was already in the hospital earlier that year because she went into the hospital a couple weeks before my birthday. My birthday's in September. She went into the hospital because she had heart palpitations. And when you're overweight like that and you have a lot of fluid around your heart is working overdrive to get oxygen to your brain. Everything's just working overdrive. Your organs are just doing a lot to keep you alive. So that's why she ended up going to the hospital, because she felt like she couldn't breathe, but her body started swelling also. She had a lot of fluid in her system. So she ended up going to the hospital for maybe about a week. And she got out before my birthday, September 10th. And then she went into the hospital a couple of weeks before Christmas, so I want to say a week and a half before Christmas. and she was in there for a while. It felt like a long time. And I want to say a couple of days before Christmas, it was made, decision was made by, my mom and, the specialist at the hospital that she should go into a physical rehab center and work on her losing weight. And I don't want to say that no, fuck it. I'm just going to say it. She knew that she was going. She told me that she was going. She was already prepared to go that summer before the month of September, before my birthday. She had already got her will typed up. She had already got that notarized and everything. She got her life, and she always had life insurance. The whole family had life insurance because she made sure that was paid up. But that was when, she changed her beneficiaries from my uncle to me, and she started leaving everything in my name. But I couldn't talk to my sister about that because my sister, it was already hard, like, losing my dad. But when it came to my mom, I had already gotten used to the fact that she wasn't going to be here anymore. But it's still hard losing a parent. On top of losing a parent on the anniversary that you lose your other parent. So it wasn't exactly the anniversary, but the holiday season, it's in that time frame, and it's still a fucked up time because she went into the rehabilitation center, and it was so fucking sad because she didn't want to go, but she felt like she had to go because she needed to make a change, that's what she said. But the underlining tone of that was, I'm not coming home, and nobody wanted to think about that. So she went into the rehabilitation center, I want to say December 23rd or Christmas Eve. And my sister had called me, and she was like, don't you think it's odd that 9 years to the day that dad passes away, or we have his funeral, that mom is in the hospital too? And I was like, well, yeah, I see what you're talking about, but I couldn't tell my sister what I already knew, what my mom already knew, because my sister was just gonna flip the fuck out. She was already depressed that my mom was in the hospital in the first place. So she went into the rehabilitation center the 23rd or the 24th. I want to say it was the early morning of the 24th, because she was in there for that day. And we had arranged for me and my sister and my sister's kids. My sister had 3 kids at the time: Darion, Dondre, and Teresha. Now, Darion's on my couch sleep right now. He's 17 now. He was 7 or 8. No, he was 7, because his birthday is in February. So he was 7 around this time. We had all arranged to get a ride down to the facility because we didn't have a car. And the rehab facility was a ways. It was on this long road. It's on Toddville Road in Charlotte. I don't know if it's still there, but that's where it was. And it's a long road where the bus doesn't go to. So we had to, it's Christmas Day, and we had to find a ride down there. So that took a while to get there. That took a while for us to get there because I had to go down to my neighbor's house, and her grandkids were going to give us a ride down there. We got on to the road that leads to the rehabilitation center, and I felt a jolt because the fire department and the ambulance had passed us. And when you're on the road and the fire department and the ambulance is going past you, you have to pull over. And they were going into the direction of the facility, and I already knew who they were going for. We were on one side, on one end of the road, and we had a long ways to go, but I already knew what the fuck was going on. I still couldn't tell my sister anything because she would have flipped the fuck out. So I let our friends drop us off, and I just told them to go because I just didn't know what to do, because I knew they were there for my mom. I knew they were there for my mom when we pulled up. And, they were like, oh gosh, I hope somebody's okay, blah, 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 blah. It's Christmas. But I knew who they were there for. So we walked into the facility. I knew where my mom's room was because I had dropped her off. It was me and my uncle and my aunt. We had dropped her off, but my sister hadn't been there before. She was at home with her kids, and she just couldn't see my mom in that type of situation. So we walked in and we turned the corner. Christmas Day. We walked in and we turned the corner and we see the fire department and the ambulance in my mom's room. And I turned to my sister and I said, that's Mom's room. And that's when she broke down. Because my mom was in there by herself. The lady that she shared the room with, it's a rehab facility, so you have more than one bed in each room. She was gone for the holiday, so there was nobody else in there. And one of the nurses, took us into, the family room and told us that my mother was talking. She was talking like, these are going to be her last days. And, when an older person talks like that, they call the family and stuff like that. And they couldn't get in touch with us because our phone, it wasn't off, but the plug was out of the wall, so we couldn't receive calls and didn't even know it. We had no idea that they were trying to get in touch with us that night before that day. So the nurse told us that they laid my mom down and they were attempting to give her a bath, but her heart stopped. Her heart stopped and they revived her on the spot, but they all obviously had to call 911. And, that's when we got there. They had already got there, and that's when we got there. So we had to call another ride. We called my mother's stepfather, who is miraculously still alive, who is my aunt's biological father. So we called him and he rushed over, just so supportive, because I don't think his wife even wanted anything to do with us. That's a whole nother fucking story. He rushed over and he picked us up and took us to the hospital that our mother was going to. And everybody was already going to get together for Christmas already. But, we had to start making calls. But like, hey, don't come to the facility. Come to the hospital. And we'll just meet there. When we get to the hospital, I think my mother was in Presbyterian. She was in Presbyterian. We get to the hospital. And we find out that they took her into the ICU. Or the ER. No, they took her into the ER first. And they told us that she was in a coma. And they told us that she was in a coma because she died on the way to the hospital. But they revived her. So that's why she was in the ICU. And when you stop breathing, obviously there's no oxygen going into your brain. And if you're revived, then you're in a comatose state. So basically my mother was a vegetable. And to this day, my sister always said our mother passed away on Christmas Day, because after that we just couldn't talk to her anymore. She was in a vegetative state. And yeah, so that was it. We didn't let Dondre and Teresha. Dondre was 5, Teresha was 3. We didn't let them see her like that. But we let Darien go in there. I don't know if Darien still remembers. But we let Darien go in. Oh, excuse me. we let Darien go in to see her. By this time, everybody was just fucked up. Everybody had rushed to the hospital, and we were just fucked up. And I think Darien was too young to see his grandmother like that. But he is her firstborn grandchild. And I'll never forget the way he looked at her. She was on the hospital bed, and she wasn't responsive. She wasn't awake at this time. And he just looked at her, and he just held his hand. And I think that was when he made his peace with her, with him being so young. He was in there for a long time. I couldn't go in there and see her like that. My sister couldn't go in there and see her like that. And like I said, everybody else was there. Everybody else was showing up. And the hospital had told us that they were gonna take her into the ICU and just give her a room in there to make her feel more comfortable. By that time she woke up, but she couldn't talk. She had a tube down her throat. She couldn't talk. She obviously couldn't respond, but she couldn't look at us. And she was just looking at us. She was awake. She was alert, but she couldn't say anything. But they were saying that it was a 1% chance that she was going to make it. So, like I said, months prior, my mom had her will drawn up. But she had a living will drawn up. And it stated that if she ever were in that state to where she was not coming back to normal, if she was in a coma or anything like that, she was in a vegetative state, and they were using a machine to keep her alive, then it clearly states in her will to pull the plug. It clearly states that. And I had to go home that night, and I had to look for her life insurance papers and just get everything together. This time I'm 19 years old, and I have to, excuse me, my throat is so dry. I'm 19 years old, and I have to plan my mother's funeral. I'm not saying that I had to do it by myself, because it was a quick process, but it's still a fucked up thing to do on Christmas Day, between Christmas and New Year's. But we took our time making that decision because, between Christmas and New Year's, there were, a couple of days where nobody, I'm not going to say nobody just didn't show up because they didn't give a fuck, but they did not want to see her like that. People would, family would show up and they'd stay in the waiting room because they just did not want to see her like that. My sister, like I said, was having a hard time. She just wouldn't come to the hospital at all. Some days she'd feel up to it. Some days she'd be so fucked up she'd get on the wrong bus and ride around and not even know where she was going and get to the hospital until that afternoon. And we'd be like, well, you left that morning. Well, what happened? Well, I got on the wrong bus. She was just in a daze. So the major decisions that my mother told me to make, that I had to make them, because my aunt and my uncles couldn't, sign papers and everything like that. It had to be her children, and my sister couldn't do it. So I would sit in the ICU day and night. And that's one thing. I'm not gonna, boast or anything like that, but I took care of my mother. I wasn't gonna leave her there by herself. I just wasn't going to leave her there by herself. And I would try and call my sister at home and, try and get, help making decisions. Well, they want to do this and that, and they want to give her this type of medicine and all that stuff. And my sister was just no help. I don't blame her, but, she was just no help. So, January 1st rolls around, and, the decision was made to take her off of life support. And they took her off of life support. We couldn't be in the room and, see that because, she had a lot of needles and tubes in her, and, they wanted to take her into the hospice part of the hospital. Now, hospice is when they move your loved one into a more comfortable room so they can transition peacefully without any noise or without any, just their family members around them. And that's when I had finally had it. I just went home. I was there for them taking her off of life support and then moving her. But when, I think the worst of me telling the story is over. But when they moved her, and they, put her, and she was still alive, she was still breathing, she was breathing on her own, but it was faint breaths, and, it was near the end, and, she was just laying there. That was it for me. I couldn't take it anymore. But like I said, I up until then, I never left my mama's side. Whew. When, it's not just because, that's my parent, but when you live with somebody, either it be your parent or your friend, and then on top of that, you're taking care of them, and you build that mother-daughter relationship, or just that relationship, period, who the fuck wants to see that? So, I went home. We let her see the new year. We couldn't bring in the new year at the hospital. We couldn't do that neither. Like, I think my uncle was there. My uncle was there. And, it was just so fucking depressing because you see people celebrating the holidays and just being so fucking happy. And something that me and my mom did every year was watch the ball drop in New York in Times Square. And even that was horrible to look at. And my sister, she called me and told me Happy New Year. And that was it. I got what little bit of sleep I could get. And New Year's Day, she was still there. And 5 o'clock, January 2nd, is when I got the call that she was gone. My uncle and his girlfriend was there when she passed. And I don't regret not being there. I had already made my peace. I had already said goodbye. We already told each other goodbye before she even went to the hospital. Whew. So, we ended up having to rush over to the hospital early that morning. It was like 5:30 by the time we got there. It took us no time to get there because our uncle had to pick us up, me and my sister. And, we called the funeral home, and like I said, my mother, she wanted to be cremated, so because of her weight, she had to be sent to South Carolina to be cremated. And then we would make the arrangements here, and then they would send her they sent her ashes back. And we had the memorial service. And we went to Greer Funeral Home, down the street from the neighborhood that my mother grew up in. She grew up, well, my mother's whole side of the family, everybody grew up in Smallwood. In Charlotte, in Charlotte, there's Johnson C. Smith University, where I'm going now. It's a HBCU, Johnson C. Smith University in Biddleville. So that's Biddleville. And beside Biddleville, like literally a street beside Biddleville, there's a neighborhood deep inside, behind some houses, that's Smallwood. So we're literally 5 minutes walking distance away from where my mother's family was raised at in Johnson C. Smith. So that's why I prefer to go to Johnson C. Smith, because I know the area other than going to UNCG. And I'd just rather just be in an area that I was comfortable in. Plus, it's an HBCU. Like, come on. I'm getting way off the subject. But, we went to Greer Funeral Home. It was down Ross's Ferry. It's a little bit further down the street. So, Johnson C. Smith and then Ross's Ferry. You're going straight down past the Family Dollar. And you're right there on John Carroll Avenue. We just made, the final arrangements. Everything was already pre-planned because of my mom, and everybody was like, what? She already did? Yeah. She already sent in her life insurance information. She told them what she wanted done. All we had to do was just, order, the flowers and, make the arrangements. I had to make some phone calls to people who didn't know. Well, they knew that she was in the hospital, but I had to make some phone calls to, people who, just thought, oh, she's going to make it out, blah, 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 blah. And they didn't think that she would actually be gone. And that was hard. And I had to call my pastor in the church that I had grew up in, because she wanted him to do her eulogy. And, some stuff I didn't even have to ask. I didn't even have to ask him to do that. And I just called him, and he was like, okay. And, the choir director, she sang at my mother's memorial service. That was on January the 7th. So, so that was a weird time. I was just so happy for the new year to be over, because everybody's just so goddamn happy. Everybody's just so goddamn happy, and all this happy new year shit was going on, and I didn't want to see or hear it. I just wanted that shit to be over. When you're taking care of your parent, and when you work and you just take care of your parent, and when you're so young, I was 19, when you're so young, I had been doing that for so long. I thought that was my purpose. So it took me a while to bounce back. I just decided to go back to school full time. I decided to go to the Art Institute of Charlotte and major in graphic design. It was a little bit over a year before I actually did, because after that, I just worked. My mom left me the house, and she left me the insurance money, and I deposited the insurance money into her, and that's how the mortgage got paid up until that ran out. And eventually, the house that I was raised in went into foreclosure, and, life went on. I moved into student housing at school, and I eventually moved into my first apartment. The years just rolled on so fast. And today will be 10 years since she actually passed away on Christmas Day. We don't acknowledge January 2nd because, I don't know why we acknowledge Christmas Day, but that's the day that, she just couldn't speak to us again. So that's why we say Christmas Day is the day she passed away. I'm so fucking tired. I think that's it. Hopefully, well, I know I'm not the only person. I know for a fact I'm not the only person who lost a loved one during the holidays, who the holidays come around and they're just not feeling it. They're not really into it like that. And, I'm not trying to be, depressing and, Debbie Downer, but you know, people can grieve together and then just make each other feel better. Hopefully somebody can watch this video and share in my experience and be like, hey, comment below and tell their story, and just just be there for one another, because not to say I don't have my family, but it's so fucking gnarly. My mother's sister, my grandmother, ended up passing away a couple of weeks after my mother, and we haven't seen my aunt since then. Literally, we have not seen her in almost 10 years since my grandmother passed, and she passed in February. So we just have not seen her. She's on Facebook, she says hey every now and again, but we do not see her. We don't fucking see her. We have, you know, after the years go by and, you know, people start to fall off, we have those core people who are just still around. Like I said, when the funeral is over, the food is gone, motherfuckers want to lie and say, if you need anything, call me, I'll be there for you, blah, 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 blah. I don't believe any of that shit. When I say it, I fucking mean it. So, but I came to the realization a couple of days ago that, you know, me and my sister lost a mother, and my sister's kids lost a grandmother, but my aunt lost her sister and her mother. We all lost somebody though, but I don't see that as an excuse to not see or check on your family. But that's some family shit that's going to have to play out by itself. Eventually something's going to happen and we're going to have to, you know, see people who we haven't seen in a long time. And I don't want to hear anybody's fucking excuse of why they didn't come around. They're supposed to be our so-and-so, auntie, uncle, blah, 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 family friend that we grew up, and I really do think that these people wouldn't have fucked with us if it weren't for my mom. If my mom was still alive, they would still be around. As soon as she passed, that was it. So that's how I feel about that. But as long as, like I said, we have those core people, and, you know, me and my sister have fell out over the years a couple of times. It's been times where, that's the sun coming out. That's the sun coming out on Christmas Day. There were times when my sister and I just didn't speak for maybe a year or two throughout these 10 years, and we've all just ended up coming back together, and because all you have is your family. Sometimes their family members are the ones who fuck you over real good, but, you know, all you really have is your family. Whether it's somebody who's not biological, that person is your family. If that person is sticking by your side, or those people, those group of people who you rely on, that is your family. You know, you only have a few people that you can call on if you need help. So that's why my nephew was sleeping on my fucking couch, because I will not let him be homeless. I will not let him be in a fucked up situation. I mean, he is going to go back and live with his mom, but for now he's just weighing my couch down. So I guess that's it, y'all. I'm tired. I'm drained, emotionally drained, and I'm tired. Hopefully, like I said, this video helped somebody. Comment down below what your story is, if you want to, if anybody sees this video, because my channel is still new. As many videos as I have, my channel is still new. Not a lot of people know about it, but you know, some people come across it and they say, oh, I love your vlogs, and my vlogs are not that fucking interesting, but, you know, it's still growing. So I just wanted to connect with my audience, and later on when it gets a little bit bigger, you know, other people can relate, because I know people can relate to this shit right here. The sun is still coming out. I guess that's my mom and my dad. So I want to say happy birthday to my dad. Happy birthday to my brother. He's still here. And I'm saying Merry Christmas to y'all and a Happy New Year. A lot of things are going to happen in 2019. I don't know what. I'm not going to predict that shit. I'm just going to work towards whatever I need to do. I start school January 8th, like I said, and hopefully I'll get involved with school and activities and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.